Pittsburgh Steeler fans, what is up? Yes, it is Monday. It is hangover time. The first guy in is Michael O'Malley. What is up, Michael O'Malley? You know what we're doing here? It's the hangover. And you know what? It's not a bad hangover today. Yes, the Steelers have been eliminated from Super Bowl contention, but that's okay. Did we expect anything more? We were hoping for a miracle. Did not come. That's no problem. But I love the fact that everybody on here and everybody that's going to be on here, and even if you're listening not in the live chat, but you're listening later on in the week, you bleed your black and gold. You want to see where we go next, and it's something that you crave. The Steelers are a 24/7, 365 addiction, and I'm glad to have that one. Alongside me today, well, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis, by the way. Shannon White's here from the great state of West Virginia. Tony, who never lived in West Virginia, but likes a good old mountain mama every once in a while. Tony from Pittsburgh, PA. What is going on, fellas? What's that?
I got my finger on the pulse. I'm in Pittsburgh. I'm the one with the finger. Yeah.
I love it. What's going on, Tony?
It's cold and snowy and well, you know, it's like that in Maryland and West Virginia too. It sucks.
Well,
but that's the worst part. It's the snow.
I just came in and it's the ice and the winds in Maryland are supposed to get up to 50 tonight.
Ooh.
So, whoo! What is going on in almost heaven, Shannon White?
Just drifting snow. It's with all these winds, it'll be like 4 or 5 inches over here and 1.5 feet over there. So it's always right where you don't want it, right at the end of the driveway. You know what I'm saying?
So here we go. I could relate to both of you guys because even though I'm a Maryland resident, born and raised in Pennsylvania, 9 years in almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Love it. Gosh. I think I had Mountaineer tickets right at the right time when they were really good, and I got to hear that song a lot, and never did that song feel better than after a win and the whole stadium singing it. But let's talk about your Pittsburgh Steelers, my Pittsburgh Steelers, and 42-21. First quarter looked pretty good for the Steelers. They kept the Chiefs out of the end zone. They woke them up though, and the defense woke them up by making a great play. And then, wow, it was woo downhill. It was like the first season of The Simpsons. Tony could relate to this. Do you remember when he was going skiing? And Homer would go boom, 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 and keep on going down. That's what that game felt like yesterday.
Once it got going.
Did. But now there's been a lot of criticism and I was criticizing a lot yesterday. I did not think the game plan was imaginative at all, especially when you go ahead and you don't defer to the second half and you take the ball, you got to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And run, pass on third down and punt that kills you. And it killed them in that game. It really did. I mean, this game might have even been different if they just had the ball back to start the second half. It might have not been. We don't know. But it was just tough. It was a tough game. Were the Steelers outmatched in this game? Yes. Controversy right now. I'm going to say it. I'll be controversial. Were they outcoached? No, not really. Because the players on the field yesterday wearing red were better than the players on the field wearing white. And that's the bottom line to it. A lot of people are ready to send coaches away, players away. I know I was angry last night. I've calmed down a little bit. But, we're going to see some changes. There's going to be some changes. The Ben era is over, which is sad to me, but it's opening up for new beginnings. And this is the kind of team that doesn't have to go 4-13. This is a team that could find a way to do it without Ben, and hopefully they will. I just hope with the salary cap money that they have, that they're able to do it the right way. And I think that starts with the offensive line. But that's me. That's my knee-jerk reaction. Shannon, when that game ended, now that could have been any time on the clock after 8:20 for you. But when you realized that the dream was over, what was your immediate reaction of what needs to get done?
I actually felt a strange sense of relief watching the Steelers the last few years. It's kind of like watching a game where you have a family member participating, because that's how big a fan of Ben Roethlisberger that I am. And anything that would happen negative, I'm like, oh, Ben's going to get criticism for that. He's going to get, criticism for that. And I know I'm going to get aggravated when I start reading comments and having discussions. So the fact that they made the playoffs, where they did not look like a playoff team in any way, shape, form, or function. I've not seen a Steeler team get blowed out that repetitively, that easily in one season. Everybody's like, well, the offense didn't do enough. They didn't give them, they didn't possess the ball, and they put the defense right back out there. I don't remember, because I'm not quite old enough either. But if you look at the 76 Steelers, that's a dominating defense, because their offense was lousy that year as well. But that defense, it didn't matter what positions the offense put them in. That defense just come out and dominated and imposed their will on the opposition. Because your offense sucks, it does put your defense in a bad position, but it's not the only reason. Kansas City scored, was it 6 straight times? And it was like, in the passing touchdowns, and it was like cake. I mean, these guys were wide open. Just because your offense sucks doesn't mean that you can't cover somebody. And that's why the pass rush has been so good for so many years now. It's covered up for the fact that the Steelers' coverage concepts are so outdated that they will no longer work in this league, especially against an elite team like Mahomes and the Chiefs. If you watch that game, the Steelers' offense, somebody said, was playing checkers and the Chiefs was playing chess. They're throwing to their backup tackle at the goal line and underhanded passes and everything. Anybody they put out there looks like a superstar, because it's easy to throw a pass to a guy who's wide open.
Yep.
And they do not jam. The Steelers defense will not jam a receiver to save their life. They're scared to death of getting beat quick. Well, you're getting beat slow. It's either the death of 1,000 paper cuts or, take a shotgun shot blow to the chest. But they've got to be more aggressive. They've got to change up these concepts. I think that both head coaches last night are great. But I do disagree with you, Brian, about the coaching ability of the offensive defensive coordinators from those two teams. The Steelers got severely outcoached.
Disagree completely. You don't get, you can talk about being outcoached, but I'm not going to agree with you on that. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. But when you have players dropping 2-yard slants, and when you have players not going, Chase Claypool does not know how to go up and get the ball in the right way in that position. As you pointed out, James Washington did. And we saw it. There was the defensive scheme wasn't good. The offensive line wasn't good. Was it the fact that it was a scheme, or the fact that these guys were terrible? And it's the fact that the offensive line is terrible, and there's only a couple guys that are going to really remain from that offensive line. So when I say that they don't get outcoached, it's not an X's and O's things is what I'm saying. It's the fact that you're saying checkers and chess. What I'm saying is they're playing chutes and ladders, because, only somebody 4 and up would be able to, somebody under 4 years of age is the only one that wouldn't have been able to compete for the Steelers. It felt like there were 7-year-olds out there that just could not execute. And you put guys on an island, and you put Ben Roethlisberger on an island. Has Ben Roethlisberger lost skills? Yes, he has. But that's what happens when you get old. My gosh, I'm squinting half the time. I was trying to do a puzzle, and I'm putting a flashlight on the puzzle today. I mean, because my eyes aren't the same. I get it. Yeah, Ben is not the Ben. This is what happens in the league. It happens to everybody except for Tom Brady. But Tom Brady is artificial intelligence, and he's animatronic. I think he died 17 years ago, and now he's just an AI. So all I'm saying is Najee Harris was on an island. You had guys on the defensive side of the ball that were absolutely amazing last night. Watt, Hayward, Fitzpatrick. But when you don't have help, you don't have help. Yeah. So you could have given that Steelers team to the Kansas City Chiefs coaching staff. They would have not done much better, is what I'm saying. So that's my definition of not being outcoached. Tony, your thoughts on me, and please don't think I'm yelling at Shannon, because I'm not. I love Shannon. I'm just going to disagree with Shannon. Tony.
It was they were outclassed. I mean, they weren't. Those two teams didn't really belong on the same field. I mean, it reminded me of Chuck Knowles last year. It was a game in the middle of the year. They were playing Washington, the Washington football team now, and Mark Rippon and that the Hogs and that great offense. It was an offensive machine, and the Steelers were just an average team. And I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna be able to hang with them, and it was over before halftime. It was that kind of a performance. And when I saw what I saw 3 weeks ago, I kind of knew last night's game would go pretty much the same way, because the NFL is all about matchups. And the Chiefs, they have the best offense in the NFL, and they could beat you so many different ways, and they have great coaching and they have great everything. And the Steelers just don't have the same kind of talent that they had even 5 years ago, at least on offense. The defense is better, but the defense was compromised in 2021 because of injuries, because of some free agent defections. So overall, the Chiefs, they're the best in the business, and the Steelers are in a rebuilding mode. They tried to do two things at once in 2021, and we talked about that. They tried to remain competitive. That's why they brought Ben back, and they wanted to give him a fair send-off, but they were also rebuilding. Look at how many rookies contributed heavily for them in 2021. And, what you saw last night, it wasn't really, I'm sure coaching had a little bit to do with it. It always does, but it was mostly about the talent. And, when you have a brand new offensive line, when you have perhaps an offensive coordinator that isn't on the same page as the quarterback, because they're from two different schools of football, the offense, people are talking about the offense not being able to help the defense out, but the offense didn't help the defense out all year, not one time. So what makes you think that suddenly they were going to be able to help the defense out last night in the playoffs? The best way for the Steelers to win that game was to keep it ugly and keep it close, and that was on the defense. I'm sorry to say, but it was on the defense to keep it close. That was their job. They're the better side of the ball. They have the defensive player of the year. They have Cam Hayward. They have Joe Hayden. They're not what they were a couple years ago. They're not what they were last year, but they are the better side of the ball, and they had to make more plays on defense. And they did make a couple plays early, but once the Chiefs got going, they couldn't stop them. And at some point, you have to stop. You have to if you're an elite defense or you want to be an elite defense, you have to be able to stop an elite offense. And they couldn't do that. They scored just 2 touchdowns at the end of the first half. One was 3rd and 20 to Kelsey, and that was it right there. The game was over right there, 21-7. They weren't getting back in that game.
Yeah, I'll agree with you partly on all that, and I agree with you. But how much could the defense do when it's 3 and out? Oh wow, maybe a 5 and out. Woo, and then a few more 3 and outs. And they're holding on so much. They forced 2 turnovers from an elite offense, and then next thing you know, it's just like the dam breaks with no help from the other side. I mean, I'm thinking if they score just once in the first quarter or early in the second quarter, and they get that turnover and they're up 14-0, this is a different kind of ball game. There's a momentum switch. When did you? Let me start with Shannon on this one. And actually, before I do that, I don't want to lose these super chats, so let me do this. Greg W gives us $5. 18 games in, Ben and the receivers are still unable to be on the same page. Why? That I think Tony just answered that. And Tony basically said that the coordinator and the quarterback were never on the same page.
Nope.
And the thing about that to me is yesterday, a lot of people were saying fire Canada, fire Canada. I don't know where I am with Matt Canada. I mean, I kind of go back and forth on it. But the thing about it is how much of it is Ben overruling Canada? An 18-year vet overruling a 1-year offensive coordinator. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. We don't know.
Well, what you saw last night, what you saw all year is what you saw last year, and that's two-yard passes. So it didn't really, the offense, with the exception of a wrinkle here and there, didn't really look much different than it did last year under Fichtner. So maybe it is Ben calling shots, and when they head into, if they keep Canada around next year, maybe his offense will be on full display with a different quarterback. We'll see.
Shannon, what do you want to do with the offensive coordinator?
He didn't have, based on his collegiate past history, he did not have the roster talent on the roster to fit his offense, which I'm sure that when they had their team meetings and they were interviewing him, thinking about giving him that position, he was like, I can make it work. Me and Ben can work together. But as you said earlier, yeah, I do believe they were outcoached, but they also, the talent disparity was hideous. It's unbelievable. Again, that the Stars made the playoffs with the lack of talent they had this year. So the problem is they have a severe need for speed and for an influx of talent all across the roster. You only have so much draft capital. And if you look at how many players and positions that they're going to have to re-sign or refill, they don't have as much salary cap as you think they do. So it's going to take some really shrewd business decisions this offseason to remain competitive and not have a 4-13 season. Because, again, they won 9 games, 7 of them game-winning drives, by being in the offense. That ain't going to be there next year. There's not going to be a scapegoat. There's not going to be anybody to blame. So it's going to be everybody. And so I don't know if Canada did enough this year when they did all their motions and everything. The only people it confused was the rookies. Last night they did a few shifts, and then Ben's having to reset again. They get down to snapping it with 1 second, and they had a false start. I think it was on Firemuth. It just confused him. They did another one. Firemuth ran the wrong route. Ryan Switzer was on Twitter during the game, and he's like, oh, I know what that was supposed to be. That's supposed to be an 18-yard out. And then if you remember, Firemuth went in, Ben threw it out, and you're standing there like, how could it still be happening? Well, you got all these young guys, and there is such a thing as a wide receiver coach. There is such a thing as an offensive coordinator. And it just didn't work. So I don't know what to do with Canada. That's going to be up to the obviously the Stars and the Rooneys to figure that one out. But even with the guys coming back, they do not have the talent to run his offense.
That's for certain. I think if you put Ben Roethlisberger on the Cleveland Browns this year, then this team goes deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, they could have protected him.
Yeah, protect him. And they could open
game.
Holes.
Mm-hmm.
So I just really think that'd be a different situation. You put Baker Mayfield on the Pittsburgh Steelers, that team's 2-15.
Yep.
I can honestly, that's what I can say in my head, and I know that's something we've talked about with Dave Schofield before too. Let's bring up Tyler W. Man, I can't speak today. Tyler W. I'm of two minds on coaching. Chiefs with Mahomes have torched us 3 times in a row. I was at the first one. Yeah, that was dreadful. That's a trend, but also Mahomes to Kelsey is the best duo in football. My gosh, they look like Montana and Rice.
But it's 14-0. 14 touchdown passes in 3 games, it's 0 interceptions. So he did, Watt tipped that one and Bush got that one last night. But so 14-1. And I mean, it didn't matter who Mahomes was throwing to. Kelsey's great, but Pringle, who did nothing all year, lit the Steelers up twice. Every guy they had looked like, a superstar because Mahomes is throwing the ball to them, but they're wide open. So again, I think that goes back to scheme and the lack of talent and speed they have at cornerback.
Very well. So I'm the kind of guy that I'm thinking that, everybody's talking about drafting a quarterback this year, and that might be something that they do. But I'm also of the mentality is you need to fix offensive line badly, and you need to get a corner too.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a top talented corner, you might go and do that first. If there's a great offensive tackle, everybody's fallen in love with Linderbaum. The problem with Linderbaum is though that he might be gone in the top 10. There's some people saying sign a veteran quarterback. Yeah. And
it might be what some of the rumors you've heard the last couple of days. They might have to, you can't do it all in 1 year. And they did some of it last year. And in my opinion, they, between last year and the year before, they at least found 40% of a new offensive line with Dan Moore and Kevin Dotson. And of course they had to address it running back. They had to address tight end. And this year, if drafting 20th, they might not be able to go up and or find a legit franchise quarterback or what they think is a legit franchise quarterback in the first round. So maybe you go with a Mason or see what you have with Dwayne Haskins, or you bring in a veteran stopgap quarterback and you address these other needs. You continue to address the offensive line, cornerback, inside linebacker. So it's people have to remember the offensive line, that great offensive line that they had for a number of years, that didn't happen overnight. It started in 2010 with Pouncey, and it really wasn't complete until they brought in Munchak in 2014. It took them several years to bring those studs in, and they had to get lucky with Ramon Foster. He was an undrafted free agent in 2009, and he became a starter in 2011. It took a long time for them to rebuild that line. So for people to think they were going to totally revamp that line last year, get rid of all those guys and bring in 5 guys and have it all work all at once, that was unrealistic. So in my opinion, they got 40%. They got a left tackle, which is maybe the hardest guy to find. I'm really intrigued by Dan Moore, and everybody loves Kevin Dotson. Now just the question is, can Kendrick Green somehow make a leap because he struggled mightily his rookie year? What are they going to do at right tackle? Obviously, they need to do something at right guard because they're probably not going to bring back Trey Turner. So there's a lot of questions, but they weren't going to be solved all last offseason anyway, and they're probably not going to be solved this offseason. It's going to take a number of years. That's rebuilding. It's unfortunate, but that's just how it is.
Well, I tell you what, I'm not concerned as much about who is going to be the quarterback next year. I'm more concerned about the offensive line. I'm concerned about the defensive line. I don't care if you bring Drew Lock in here. Man, I don't care if you bring Case Keenum in here. I'd love to have a guy like Derek Carr. But the problem,
me too.
With bringing in a Rodgers or a Wilson, and by the way, Ian Rappaport's garbage. That guy gets it right 30% of the time, and bringing them out the day of a playoff game to shut up, stop. Everybody knows they're not going to go after Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, and the reason being is because you can't afford to trade for those guys when you don't have the offensive line.
Absolutely.
You need to keep your draft capital too. So, I could really see them bringing in just an average guy. A Case, you saw what Case Keenum did with other teams, and you have Najee Harris there. You work on the line. You bring somebody in from free agency, and you draft somebody. You bring somebody in from free agency in the defensive line, and they like to bring corners in from free agency. They'd rather do that than draft. So there is so much. There is so much there.
Can I ask you guys a question? Sorry, Go ahead. I've been hearing this all the last few days, like people, because there's possibilities that Jimmy Garoppolo will be available because of Trey Lance, and of course, Derek Carr, he's always in that rumor mix to be available. And people say, oh, I don't want either one of those guys. Well, why not? Either you want a good quarterback or you don't. And those guys are good quarterbacks. They're not going to go to the Hall of Fame, but they're good quarterbacks. So either you're not going to get Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson for the reasons you just said. So either you draft a guy in the first round and throw him in there right away and hope that he's not a train wreck and you can develop him over 2 or 3 years, or you bring in one of these second tier guys, which would be a Derek Carr or a Jimmy G. So my question is, all these quarterbacks that people throw out there, these veterans, like, oh, I don't want that guy, he's garbage, but they're not garbage. They're good quarterbacks and they can run an offense. So if you're looking for a stopgap measure, that's probably the best you're going to do. And I don't understand what's wrong with either one of those guys. If you want to be competent at the quarterback position next year, those two guys would be fine, in my opinion.
I'd be very happy with a Jimmy G or a Derek Carr. I think that's the best that's out there right now. Really is. I mean, I'd look at Kirk Cousins and not have a problem bringing that guy in either.
Mm-hmm.
I would not have a problem with that because you're not going to get the pick of the litter.
Right.
You're not going to get the best thing out there. You're not going to get a superstar in on free agency. But if you follow the Tennessee Titans way of doing things, nobody raised any kind of commotion when this team, the Tennessee Titans, when they brought in Ryan Tannehill. Now Ryan Tannehill has a chance to lead this team to a Super Bowl possibly.
Yeah, they've been contenders for 2 years.
And they've been contenders, and they have a running game. And so when you look at bringing in Ryan Tannehill in with a team that has a stud running back from Alabama, you bring in a marginal quarterback, and you have a stud running back from Alabama, like Ryan Tannehill did with Derrick Henry. Look at the Steelers. You bring in a guy like that is thrown away from another team, but has the pedigree and has the potential and needs a new place, a new lease on life. Well, you have that because you've got that stud running back from Alabama named Najee Harris. You've got receivers that are competent. They need to get better. They need to grow. But that's the kind of guy you bring in. So, I mean, let's not be if we're going to be beggars, don't be choosers. Get a competent guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready. Look, I love Pitt. I went to Pitt. I love Kenny Pickett. I don't love him in black and gold, though. It's just, I think a fifth-year senior could be fool's gold because he wasn't expected. I mean, the beginning of the season, he was expected to be maybe a fourth or third rounder at best. Now, he's he could go in the top 10, which I hope he does. I think that's great.
He's going to go in the top 10 for sure.
But I wouldn't get too caught up on this guy. We're talking about the salary cap too. I want to bring up Snowman, who is now $5 less under the salary cap now because he just gave it to us. According to overcap.com, the Steelers will have $41 million under the cap next year. Wow. That's some nice stuff. Think about this. I don't know. Shannon, you might know this a little bit better than me. The guy who I really ask these questions to, Dave Schofield. But what happens if they don't bring back, if Tuitt doesn't come back next year? Do you get some salary cap savings with him? Because I don't know if he's coming back. So different things could happen. You have guys like Zach Banner that might not be on the roster next year. You might see them making more cuts and having more salary cap. I'm dense when it comes to the salary cap. So you know how I handle the salary cap, guys? Hey, Dave, it's bad. What's going to happen in this situation? Well, I'll tell you, Brian. And then he goes into it, and then my head starts spinning. But because he's got all this great information. So all I'm saying is, man, I don't think quarterback is the biggest problem right now. And I've been starting to think that for a while.
Well, you can build the team, as I said before last week. The Bengals built a team from the skill positions and then filled in the offensive line the best they could with free agency.
Brilliantly.
And and now they're in the second round of the playoffs. And so it can be done. There's no certain way or magic formula to do it. And the Steelers have got some pieces to build around. My article tomorrow, the stock report, covers a lot of this because they've got some really good talent, a few building blocks, but they got a whole lot more question marks than they have answers. And so it's going to take a little bit of time. I don't believe this is going to be a 1 year complete rebuild. They can show improvement, obviously, and build the team. But like you said, they need to focus in certain areas to build that offensive line, to find a backup running back to take some of the pressure off Harris because he cannot get 381 touches next year. He's just you're going to wear him out. By the time you build the line around him and get a quality team, he's going to be wore out. And we've seen that happen in the past. So they just have to they can't follow a certain formula, but they got to make them shrewd business decisions, as we talked about earlier. The quarterback situation, to answer Tony's question, I agree. A guy like Derek Carr, I really like him. I think he would be an upgrade over Rudolph. But the problem is he's not a fit for Canada's offense. Mariota would be more of a fit. If let's say the Ravens, that Lamar Jackson don't like Kevin Huntley breathing down his neck because Huntley, actually threw the ball better than Jackson this year at times. And Huntley's can move, and so he might be like, I don't want him behind me. We've seen it happen. Brady said, get Garoppolo out of here. and that can happen. And if he become available, he could run Canada's offense. So that's the next decision they're going to have to make. I think before the draft and the free agency, they need to decide what they're going to do with Canada.
Very, very good. I mean, this is something that we are going to be talking about all the way until the middle of March when we get the free agents. And then we're going to be talking about the draft and looking at it there. The thing about the Steelers, though, I mean, I have been around this team a long time, and I've never seen them have to really rebuild. I've seen them more reload. No, they've had they had those seasons like 85 and 86.
That's great to say.
Yeah, I mean, they've had some bad seasons, but it's never been a situation where they've had to just start from scratch and it be a 5-7 year plan. And I don't worry about that. So to end the quarterback discussion, I'm going to just ask you this real quick. Let's make this rapid fire. Mason Rudolph in 2022. Is it the worst thing in the world if it happens? Tony?
No, I don't think it's the worst thing. I think it might. I think a whole year when he knows he's the man might be good for his confidence.
Even if it's not, even if he can just hold down the fort. We saw a Mason Rudolph team almost make the playoffs, and a Duck Hodges team almost make the playoffs. So there you go, Shannon. If
they use this next year to build that offensive line and improve the team speed and the secondary, and that would cost the Steelers having to have Rudolph as a starter for 1 year, I could get behind that.
Hey, do me a favor, everybody out there. If you do put a super chat in and it's a while before I answer it, say, hey, bad. Did you get my super chat? Monster 199. Man, did Hayden look bad out there. Do you agree with that, Shannon? Because
since he come back from the injury, I wrote about it in the stock report again. Hayden, it seems to me he lost a lot of enthusiasm this season because he wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, and they did not give him the extension he wanted prior to the season. And he said that it emotionally affected him this year. He was very disappointed. He's a lifer. He's like Juju. Juju comes back and plays in that game yesterday. It was all risk, little reward, because he had to know what was going to happen. But he wanted to play for the Steelers, He wanted to play with Ben one more time. I believe Hayden has that kind of love for the organization. But as a cornerback, when you get in your early 30s like that, sometimes you just fall off the ledge. I remember Rod Woodson, after he come back from that miraculous knee, to play in the Super Bowl, and then the next year, he when he go up against some really good speed, Woodson could fly, but he couldn't turn his hips and change direction as fast as he used to. So he'd bite on double moves, and he kept getting burned. So the Steelers were like, hey, man, we love you. You're awesome. We want to move you to safety. And he's like, oh, no, cornerbacks make a lot more money. So I don't want to move to safety. And he said, well, give me another year and I'll be. So they had their issues, and he ended up going to San Francisco. Well, guess what happened in San Francisco? He kept getting torched. So he played there 1 year. Then he ends up with the Ravens, and guess what? Safety. And he's a Hall of Fame cornerback and safety because that's how good he was.
And not just there, but in Oakland too.
Yeah, they just wanted him to do what was best for him. But you can understand it's a pride thing and it's a money thing. But Hayden was already starting to show some wear. But then when he got hurt, and it was his foot, if I remember.
Yeah.
And he tried to come back. From that first game he come back, he was getting torched. And he was having to play even farther off. One time last night, I showed my wife, you couldn't even see him in the screen. He was playing so far off. I said, she said, is anybody covering? I said, yeah, he's playing that far off, giving a cushion because he realized, and you see what happened when he got matched up. He got beat over the top instantly. So yeah, he was a shadow of himself last night. And you hate to see that, but man, that happens with cornerbacks of that age group.
I agree. And Tyler W. also agrees, Shannon, for something earlier. We have a need for speed at cornerback, and with the new Top Gun movie coming out this year. There you go. Speaking of my favorite movies, I'm going to bring up Christian Johnson here. The only reason he says sign Kirk Cousins, I don't have a problem with that.
That's David Hasselhoff, ain't it?
It's not Hasselhoff. That's the reason I'm bringing it up. This should be your new offensive coordinator. It's John Kreese from Cobra Kai.
Oh, okay. I couldn't say it good.
No mercy.
No mercy.
Strike first.
So,
Strike
gentlemen,
first.
what do you
Right.
think? Should
I
I
love
go
it.
ahead?
There
You
it is.
go.
Eagle Fang Karate, though. I think that might be a good one too.
Man, I got so excited putting my Cobra Kai stuff on that I just knocked my headphones off. So you're an Eagle Fang guy, Tony?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so am I.
definitely Eagle Fang.
I'm definitely an Eagle Fang, but there's something about Kreese that for my
he's
50th
good.
birthday party, I went as John Kreese, and I walked around with the gi on like this.
He's such a good actor, that guy.
There is no pain at this 50th birthday party, is there? Yes, Sensei.
A little bit.
So yeah, there was a lot of pain. But anyways, so you got to make it fun. Our I don't know if she went to the game yesterday. I know she went a couple weeks ago, but our good friend Kathy Ford, one of the originals here, and we just love Kathy in the live chat. I hope you didn't go to that game yesterday. One, it looked like you would have froze, and two, I mean, 2 defeats like that 3 weeks in a row. I mean, in 3 weeks, you don't want that. So $7, she gives 4-7, and that's it. I mean, we could say all we want about Ben. Man, he gave us a great 18 years with this team. So for number 7, I just gave 7 claps. But thank you, Kathy. Oh, yep, yeah, I love it. Look, I want to talk about the receivers real quick because the receivers helped let us down in that game yesterday. However, I'm not ready to run Deontay Johnson out of town. I was mad at Deontay Johnson last night. Oh, I was really mad at him. I woke up not as mad at him today. I get it. But my gosh, you catch one of those slants. That could be a different game. Especially that first one. I think he could have went the whole way on that first one. I worry about Deontay Johnson being a little fragile as far as when he doesn't forget. I think he plays with so much passion that he does not forget his mistakes and he doesn't want to do it again. But I'm not ready to get rid of this guy. I'm not ready to get rid of Chase Claypool either.
No.
I think some adjustments need to be made with those guys. And I could actually say that if they could find a way to, and he kind of mentioned it in his post-game press conference or in interviews, he'd like to be back being Juju Smith-Schuster if they have a good quarterback situation. So he's watching the quarterback situation. And I would say about Juju is, man, he plays with, you saw him making blocks yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He caught 5 balls yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, did he do anything? No, I mean, my gosh, the guy was on the shelf since September 29th, and I thought that's the kind of guy that gets a game ball. You know what I mean? For what he did on offense, just the comeback. I think it's hard for me to say for a guy that we've accused of being immature a lot in 2020, and for good reason. But when he gets on that football field, there's a high level of maturity for Juju Smith-Schuster. And I think he separates it, and a lot of us really don't think that he separates it. But I do. And I'd love to see him back because Juju this year could be a difference in home field advantage. They win the division if Juju's there. I can honestly say that. They probably win the division because they win maybe one more game and don't tie another. So I would say that, but I mean, we don't know for sure. I mean, we know that might never happen. I mean, for us to ever find out. But all I can say is there's a lot of heart left on this team. Make the adjustments that you need to make, and you don't have to go too far to rebuild. But I'm going to ask you guys this. You have the ability to make one move. It could be anything. It could be fire somebody. It could be promote somebody. It could be bring in a draft somebody. Now, when I'm saying draft somebody, you've got to be realistic with it. You can't say, oh, I'm going to get that Hutchinson guy from Michigan. No, he's not going to be there. Whatever you think, bringing in a free agent. What is the move that you make? And I'll let you guys fight to go first on this one. You go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, I was going to say the same for you. Because I really don't know the answer. I would have to, I take that very seriously because I know that one move's not going to make that big a difference when you have this many needs. But, like I would not pursue a Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson or any high-priced quarterback for that matter due to the shape of the offensive line and what it would do to their again, the salary cap looks better than it actually is because of, how much they're going to have to spread that out. Minka Fitzpatrick's going to come due very soon. And but one thing I would do would be to try to work something out and solidify Fitzpatrick so that you do have, an elite defender on all 3 levels and try to build around them guys.
Tony, your one move. It's not going to fix everything.
Well,
but what's your first move?
I mentioned earlier, I think they have there's a lot to be optimistic about when it comes to Dan Moore and obviously everybody loves Dotson. I think everybody believes in Kevin Dotson. He just got hurt at the end of the year. It happens. I would go out and sign a right tackle. That would go a long way in fixing that line because then you would have 3/5 of it in place theoretically. Obviously, Dan Moore, he's only a rookie, so who knows what's going to happen. He might regress next year. Hopefully not. Hopefully he improves. That's what you want to see. So you'd have 3/5 of that line, and that a veteran guy, maybe a guy who's ready for his second contract. Not like an old guy, but like a guy who's coming into his prime. You might have to spend a lot for that, but not a crazy amount, I don't think. So then that's what I did, and then you would have to figure something out at center and right guard, and between Green and Hassenauer, maybe one of those guys will be up for the challenge. I think a lot of people were impressed with Hassenauer down the stretch, filling in after Green got benched. So that's what I would do, a right tackle. Again, you can't fix everything, but if you can improve that line, and we've seen this the last 2 years. The part of the reason why this offense has been so dreadful is because the line's been so bad. So you bring a guy in like that, and I think you're on your way.
So I want to bring up this live chat here, Tony, and I wasn't going to go ahead and I wasn't going to come in on this exercise, but Tyler W gives us $2. Aditi, who is Adita Kinkawala, did I pronounce that right? Kinkawala, reported Butler's going to retire when we're talking about defensive coordinator Keith Butler. So when I saw that, I immediately went to the Google machine here, and I found this from this was the report from Aditi, but it's on the Spun. It's also on 93.7's website. One longtime Steelers assistant who predates his arrival in the Steel City is reportedly retiring too. Apparently on 93.7 The Fan, Aditi Kinkawala from the NFL Network reported that Steelers defensive coordinator Keith Butler is expected to retire. Butler has served in the role since 2015, following the departure of Hall of Fame assistant Dick LeBeau. So if that happens, this is all I'm going to say. I like some of the things that Terrell Austin has done. However, you go outside and you get the best veteran defensive coordinator that you can get. If Vic Fangio doesn't go to another team, you at least interview him. Brian Flores, somebody mentioned before that they'd love to have Brian Flores. I would love to have Brian Flores. You're not going to get Brian Flores likely because Brian Flores should be a head coach somewhere. He should be, I think he's the top free agent coach right now. So I think you look outside of the organization if this is true and you bring in a defensive coordinator. Please be careful with hiring from within.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I had a manager tell me years ago that sometimes when the ship's going down, you get rid of everybody. And I was the assistant manager at the time. And I convinced him to hire from within and keep me. Worked out for me. I ended up winning on awards, and I was promoted even outside of that job. This was years ago. This was 20 years ago with a rental car company. But what I'm saying here is that doesn't always work. And in this situation, it's not Butler that's the complete problem because you have a guy like Terrell Austin doing the schemes, and even Mike Tomlin getting involved there too. So I would bring in a guy like that. I love the idea of the Hall of Fame having a position, having an award for assistant coach. Because I tell you what, if you were to do that, you would put guys like Wade Phillips in the Hall of Fame. You would put a guy like Norv Turner in the Hall of Fame. You're going to put a lot of these guys that were great coordinators, but not great head coaches. And I think there should be room for a coordinator in the Hall of Fame. And that's what I think they need to do. I think a guy like Fangio is a better defensive coordinator, a great defensive coordinator, but not as good as a head coach. Shannon, your finger was up.
I was just going to say, we've all worked with people that get promoted above their capabilities. And as you say, there's some guys that are great coordinators, but they don't need to be head coaches. And, or maybe they're a great positional coach like Butler. He's great with linebackers, but as a defensive coordinator, he was, from LeBeau, he's the holdover. He was his assistant. They wanted to keep that. And they're like, well, Butler knows that we're going to promote him. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. It's worked as far as the pass rush goes. And when he has the horses, Lulu and Tuitt, it works with even Bush when he was healthy. The run defense was much better. This year it fell apart because of a lot of who they lost. But I just think that, you mentioned Brian Flores. it's incredible. They won, I think, 8 games in a row after starting like 1-8, and then they won 8 games in a row. And you say, well, how could they fire him? But then you start to, the worst thing you could be as a coach in today's NFL with free agency is you want to be you don't want to be a reputation of not being a player's coach or difficult for players to deal with. They said the reports come out that why they fired Flores is because he said Tua Tagovailoa, I know I'm saying his name wrong, but he told him, he said, if I knew you was going to be this bad, I wouldn't have drafted you. And he said it at halftime of a game. Well, that's supposed to be your franchise quarterback. And this was reported by different players and all. If you can't say that to the guy who's going to be, because a head coach and the quarterback's got to have a special relationship. So if the Dolphins, if you're going to go forward and you're going to keep Tua, you can't keep Flores or the vice versa. And so I think a lot of times, when we see something and it doesn't make sense, it's because we don't know the whole story. And I didn't know if y'all had seen that report that come out, but then it made sense to me.
I did not, and I'm glad you brought that up. Just me ask this question, and it's about Ben Roethlisberger, because we're going to wrap up with Ben Roethlisberger here. How long do we have to wait for Ben to get into the Hall of Fame? Need to schedule my vacation time now. So it's 5 years. So I would probably think you would be looking at the 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 season. So after the 26th season, so maybe in 27 or 28. I know he's first ballot, but I get a little hazy on that year there and how they count it for when you get on the ballot. So I would say 2027, 2028. Would you guys agree with that?
Well, yeah, Bradshaw retired in 83. He got in 89. Same with Mel Blount. Troy retired in 2014. He made it 2015. Oh no, he made it in 2020, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but it was delayed. So yeah, it's 6 years from after you retire.
Okay. So I thought it was it's 5 years.
It's 5 years till you hit the ballot.
Yeah.
And then if you make it, you go in on the next year.
Okay. Yeah. So that's where it confuses me. I know it's 5 years, but it gets a little hazy there. So speaking of Ben, that was Ben's last game, and we've given him kudos over the last 3-4 weeks. And we're going to continue to do it because there's a lot of thanks to Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers lost in the playoffs, and they're out, and it was embarrassing fashion. So to end this show, I want to ask both of you, and I want to ask you in the live chat too, how are you doing? Shannon, how are you doing?
Thankfully, when the Monday night game in Pittsburgh and they beat Cleveland, and that's where I told you I did shed tears, and it was a tough moment, but I got a lot of that out of me. And then it was all positive, the Ravens game. So last night I was expecting them to lose. My heart tells me, we have a chance. We got a puncher's chance, but in my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that, this is not going to be close. So I just wanted to see him have a decent game and not to get injured and be able to walk off the field, the last game as healthy as possible and under his own terms. I think that he's, based on a statement he released today, I think he's basically, accepting that this is it. And even though he didn't say after the game he's officially retiring, the statement he made this morning sounds like that he's accepted it. And I think it's time. So, I'm going to miss the heck out of him. And it's going to be different. But I'll always love the Pittsburgh Steelers. I always root for the Steelers. And but he'll always be my quarterback.
Tony, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, I was glad that he came back for one more year. I thought it was appropriate that he went out the way he did in front of fans and kind of made that retirement tour that a lot of great athletes make throughout history. It would have been sad to see him go out in an empty Heinz Field last year, crying with Marquise Pouncey after that miserable loss to the Browns. You know, he didn't have a great. He didn't look great. There's no question about it. He was not him. What made him great years earlier, but he did lead several fourth quarter comebacks, which was nice to see. They did make the playoffs. He did get to play in one last playoff game, which I think guys like him deserve to go out in the postseason. You know, we saw it with Dan Marino many years ago, many others over the years. So I'd rather see him go out the way he did than go out last year, you know, or go out sitting on the bench as a backup. I didn't want to see that either. So I'm glad that they were able to kind of do two things at once and honor Ben for one final year with fans in attendance and kind of start a rebuild. So I was fine with it. The fact that they made the playoffs to me is amazing, you know, because you could see from there was no improvement on offense from week one, and the defense was so compromised by injury that it wasn't as good as effective as it might have been. So the fact that they made the playoffs, to me, anything that happened last night, I wanted them to win, but I knew the chances were pretty slim. So anything after week 18 to me was gravy.
And, you know, I will say this, that playoff game, even though it's a loss, it means a lot to those rookies. And there's a lot of significant rookies that played in that game. And a playoff, you can, you make a big jump from year one to year two, but having playoff experience helps too. Mike O'Malley is stealing my thunder. He said Marino lost worse, because I was going to ask you guys if 62-7 means anything to you. And that's how Dan Marino went out. Right. And his legacy's not tarnished because of it. But Ben Roethlisberger, the career he had, my gosh, hats off to you. I am doing okay. You know, it's going to be weird not to have Ben in there. True. But there's a part of me that's ready to turn the page and celebrate everything that this man gave the city of Pittsburgh and the team. So I'm fine with it. But I'm really excited for the future. And I'm not down on the future, because I know what this organization does. I know this isn't Dan running it, but I have faith in Art too as well. So I'm ready to see what happens. It is going to be a very interesting offseason. You thought last season was interesting? This is going to be even more interesting this offseason. And guess what? You don't have to go away. This isn't Motley Crue. Girl, just go away mad. Just go away. No. Girl, don't go away mad. Okay, I screwed it up. I mean, Cherry's going to yell at me because I just screwed up like an 80s classic rock. Man, I can't believe I'm calling Motley Crue classic rock. But all I'm saying is, yeah, I screwed that up. But girl, don't go away mad. Just go away. No, it's not that way. So guys, don't go away. Ladies, don't go away. This is BTSC. We have 3 original podcasts every single day for you. We're going to have all of the things that you need on the editorial side as well. There's no reason not to check it out. There's no reason not to check out Jeffrey Benedict tomorrow from the cutting room floor. There's no reason not to check out the Scobro show. And there's no reason not to check out the Live Mic and every other show that's going to come on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and back here on Monday. Shannon White, are you going to be here next week?
Yes.
Tony Defeo, are you going to be here next week?
Absolutely.
Unless they finally wise up and fire my sorry butt, I'll be here next week too. So with that being said, we love you. We can't do these shows without you. So thank you so much. We need you to do 3 things. The first thing, Tony, you know it. Give me the fingers. Not that finger, that finger. That's good. You got to stay safe. 2, you got to be true to yourself. And 3, always be behind the steel curtain. For Shannon White and Tony Defeo, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. You can call me bad. And just when you think you've got all the answers,
we keep changing the questions.
Woo! Good night. We love you. The season's over, but Steelers keep on rolling.